Happy anniversary.
Oh. Mrs. Roper, this is Cindy Snow. She's Chrissy's cousin.
Figures.
Behind every actor swap is a story. Sometimes it's about money, sometimes it's drama, and sometimes it's just plain weird. We are going to uncover the truth behind 20 famous sitcom recasts. Believe it or not, one show recast a character 3 times and just kept making jokes about it. Let's jump in. 1. Vivian Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
That's when she snatched off the wig.
She snatched off the woman's wig?
No, Lester's.
Now this is a story all about how a beloved TV mom got flipped, turned upside down. On The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will Smith's character moved from West Philadelphia to live with his rich aunt and uncle in their Bel Air mansion. His Aunt Vivian, or Aunt Viv, was a central character. She was a strong, smart, and elegant college professor who was also a loving but firm mother figure to Will and her own 3 children. For the first 3 seasons, Aunt Viv was played by the incredible Janet Hubert. She was amazing in the role, bringing a fiery passion and a regal presence. She was also a talented dancer, which was showcased in an iconic episode where she performs a flawless dance routine. But as the show became a worldwide phenomenon, rumors started to swirl about tension on the set. Specifically, reports said that Janet Hubert and the show's star, Will Smith, were not getting along. Their personalities clashed, and the work environment became very difficult. By the end of the 3rd season, the situation had reached a breaking point. When the show returned for its 4th season, Janet Hubert was gone. The role of Aunt Viv was now being played by actress Daphne Maxwell Reid. This was not a subtle change. Daphne Maxwell Reid had a much softer, calmer, and more motherly presence. Her version of Aunt Viv felt like a very different character. The show never once mentioned the change. One week it was Janet, the next it was Daphne, and the story just continued. A feud between actors is a dramatic reason for a recast, but what happens when a star has to be replaced because of a secret, painful injury he was hiding from the world? 2. Darren Stevens on Bewitched.
Idiotic, am I? Well, let me tell you something, Sam.
She's here.
This is the big one, the one that started the phrase, the 2 Darrens. On Bewitched, the entire story revolved around the relationship between Samantha the Witch and her mortal husband, Darren Stevens. Darren was the stressed-out, flustered advertising executive who just wanted a normal life. He loved his wife, but he hated it when she used magic. His constant frustration with his magical mother-in-law, Endora, was a source of endless laughs. For the first 5 seasons of the show, Darren was played by an actor named Dick York. He was amazing. He was the perfect physical comedian with a talent for bug-eyed expressions of panic and frustration. But behind the scenes, Dick York was in constant, terrible pain. Years before Bewitched, he had suffered a severe back injury while filming a movie. He never fully recovered. To get through filming, he had to take a lot of pain medication. The long hours on set made his condition worse and worse. It got so bad that one day, during the filming of an episode in Season 5, he had a seizure on set and had to be rushed to the hospital. When he was lying in his hospital bed, he knew he couldn't continue. He quit the show right then and there. The show was a massive hit, so they couldn't just end it. They decided to do the unthinkable and recast the main male character. Starting in Season 6, a new actor named Dick Sargent stepped into the role of Darren. The show never mentioned the change, creating a legend in TV history. Recasting a husband is one thing, but our next show did something even crazier. It recast one of the main kids and then brought the original actress back, creating the legendary tale of the 2 Beckys. 3. Becky Connor on Roseanne.
Oh, you mean you hid some food under all this slop?
Hey! I stuck that in the microwave, press power, press time, press start, And this is the thanks I get.
No list of character replacements would be complete without talking about Becky Connor from Roseanne. The show was praised for its realistic portrayal of a blue-collar American family. Roseanne and Dan Connor were raising their 3 kids, DJ, Darlene, and the oldest daughter, Becky. In the first 5 seasons, Becky was played by an actress named Lisa Goranson. She was the perfect original Becky, a smart, sometimes rebellious teenager who was just trying to grow up. Then, Becky did something that changed everything. She eloped with her boyfriend Mark. Around that same time in real life, Lisa Goranson decided she wanted to go to college. She left the show to attend Vassar. At first, the show just wrote her character out, saying she had moved away with Mark. But she was a popular character, so they wanted to bring her back. For season 6, they recast the role with a new actress, Sarah Chalky. Sarah had a different, more bubbly energy, and she played Becky for the next couple of seasons. But here's where it gets really weird and funny. Lisa Goranson decided she wanted to come back to the show. The producers liked both actresses, so they decided to do something no show had ever done before. They had both actresses share the role. For season 8, Lisa would play Becky in some episodes, and Sarah would play her in others, depending on Lisa's school schedule. They never explained the change to the audience. One week, Becky would just look completely different. They even made jokes about it in the show. Having 2 actors play the same sister is wild. But what about a show so huge it recast a character after only 1 episode, and most of us never even noticed the switch? 4. Carol Willick on Friends.
Does something that, funnily enough, wasn't even her major.
Everyone who watched Friends remembers Carol. She was Ross Geller's first wife who later realized she was a lesbian and left him for her new partner, Susan. Carol was a really important part of Ross's story, especially in the early seasons. She was the mother of his son, Ben, and their modern family dynamic led to some of the show's funniest and most heartfelt moments. The Carol we all know and love was played by the amazing actress Jane Sibbett. She had this warm and friendly vibe that made her perfect for the part. But here's the kicker. She wasn't the first Carol. Believe it or not, the very first time we ever saw Carol on screen, in the second episode ever titled The One with the Sonogram at the End, she was played by a totally different actress named Anita Barone. She looked quite different from Jane Sibbett, and it's a real shock when you go back and rewatch that early episode. The producers originally wanted a bigger role for Carol, but Anita Barone decided she wanted to pursue a more full-time acting gig elsewhere, so she quit after just 1 appearance. The role was then recast, and Jane Sibbett made it her own for the rest of the show's 10-year run. Most of us just blended the two in our memory. It's pretty wild to think a show as huge as Friends had a switch-up so early on. But what if a show waited until its final season to replace its beloved matriarch right before the finish line? 5. Harriet Winslow on Family Matters.
What are you doing here?
What are we doing here? What are you doing here?
Well, we're working.
Oh, that's a new name for it.
Did I do that? For 9 seasons, Family Matters was a staple of the famous TGIF lineup on Friday nights. The show was a spin-off of Perfect Strangers and centered on the Winslow family, a middle-class African-American family living in Chicago. You had the dad, Carl, the mom, Harriet, and their 3 kids. But the show's breakout star, and the reason most people watched, was their nerdy, clumsy, and super genius next-door neighbor, Steve Urkel. The heart of the family was the mom, Harriet Winslow, played by actress Jo Marie Payton. She was the calm and loving center of the often chaotic household. She played the role for 8.5 seasons. But as the show went on, it became more and more about Steve Urkel and his crazy inventions and catchphrases. Jo Marie Payton grew frustrated with this direction. She felt the show had lost its focus on the family it was named after. In the middle of the 9th and final season, she decided she had had enough and left the show. For the last 9 episodes of the series, the role of Harriet was taken over by another actress, Judy Ann Elder. It was a very strange change to make so close to the end, and it was a clear sign that things were not all good behind the scenes. Replacing a mom is a big deal, but our next show also replaced a parent after just 1 episode because the creators felt the first actor just wasn't cranky enough. 6. Morty Seinfeld on Seinfeld.
Stop it, Jerry, let go.
Jerry.
Would you let me pay just once?
You're out of your mind.
How are you gonna pay? You don't even have a wallet.
On the show, Seinfeld, Jerry's parents, Morty and Helen Seinfeld, were some of the most memorable recurring characters. They lived down in Florida in a retirement community, and every time they came to visit Jerry in New York, it was comedy gold. Morty was a former raincoat salesman who was obsessed with money and couldn't stand to see a penny wasted. His constant arguments and schemes were hilarious. The Morty we all remember was played perfectly by actor Barney Martin. He had that perfect grumpy but lovable old man energy. But he wasn't the first Morty. Let's go all the way back to the 2nd episode of the very first season. In an episode called The Stakeout, Jerry's parents come to town. If you watch that episode, you'll see a completely different man playing Jerry's dad. The original Morty was played by an actor named Phil Bruns. After the episode was filmed, the show's creators, Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld, felt that Phil Bruns's portrayal was a little too laid back. They wanted a character who was tougher and would argue more with Jerry. So, when it was time to bring the character back in Season 2, they decided to recast the part, and Barney Martin got the job. He played Morty for the rest of the show's run, and he made the character a true icon. A recast for creative reasons makes sense. But what about a show that recast a character as a running joke, just to mess with the audience? 7. Ann Veal on Arrested Development.
Hey, Ann, you're here. That's great. I wasn't sure whether you got my message.
It wasn't a message. We talked.
Arrested Development is one of the smartest and most layered sitcoms ever made. It's famous for its running gags that can last for seasons. One of the best and weirdest jokes was the character of Ann Veal. Ann was the very religious and incredibly bland girlfriend of George Michael Bluth. The joke was that the Bluth family, especially Michael, could never remember who she was. They were constantly forgetting her name and face. Michael would call her things like her or egg. To make this joke even funnier, the show decided to recast the character. In her first appearance, Ann was played by an actress named Alessandra Torresani. She was only in 1 episode. When the character returned in Season 2, she was played by a completely different actress, Mae Whitman. The show's creators have said that their original plan was to keep recasting Ann with a different actress every time she appeared, to really drive home the point that she was completely unmemorable. But Mae Whitman was so perfectly funny and bland in the role that they decided to keep her. She played Ann for the rest of the show's run. It was a brilliant and hilarious gag that perfectly fit the show's unique sense of humor. A funny recast is one thing, but sometimes a recast happens for a much more normal reason, like an actress simply not being available, which is what happened to Pam's mom on our next show. 8. Helene Beasley on The Office.
So, what'd we decide for Michael? The bottle of rum or the seashell alarm clock?
You know what? Can I have the weekend to decide?
On The Office, we got to know the employees of Dunder Mifflin really well over 9 seasons. We met their friends, their partners, and even their families. One of the most important family members we met was Helene Beasley, the mother of the sweet and artistic receptionist, Pam. Pam's relationship with her mom was a key part of her character. So, when it came time for Pam's wedding to Jim, one of the most anticipated events in the show's history, it was a big deal to finally meet her mom. Here's where it gets a little confusing for sharp-eyed fans. The first time we ever see Helene is way back in Season 2 in an episode that we can't say the name of out loud on YouTube, but it goes something like Intimate Violence. Pam is on the phone with her, and we get a quick glimpse of her mom, played by actress Shannon Cochran. But then, years later, when we see Helene again in the big wedding episodes in Season 6, she is played by a totally different actress, Linda Pearl. So what happened? It was a simple case of scheduling. The producers wanted the original actress to come back, but Shannon Cochran was busy performing in a play and wasn't available for filming. So they had to recast the part. Linda Pearl took over the role and played Pam's mom for the rest of the series, including a storyline where she briefly dates Michael Scott. Recasting a mom can be tricky, but what about recasting a baby? Our next show had to do just that when the original twin actors decided they were done with showbiz. 9. Lily Tucker Pritchett on Modern Family.
2, 3. It's gone. It's over there.
It's not back there.
Modern Family was a huge hit because it showed all different kinds of families. One of the most popular families on the show was Cam and Mitchell, a gay couple who, in the very first episode, adopt a baby girl from Vietnam named Lily. For the first 2 seasons, the adorable baby Lily was played by a pair of identical twin girls named Ella and Jaden Hiller. They were super cute and a big part of the show's early charm. But as the show went into its 3rd season, the Hiller twins were getting older, and truth be told, they just weren't enjoying acting anymore. Their parents said that the girls would get fussy on set and didn't like being the center of attention. So they decided to pull their daughters from the show. This meant the producers had to find a new Lily. They held auditions and found a sassy and hilarious 4-year-old named Aubrey Anderson Emmons. She took over the role at the start of Season 3. Because there was a time jump between seasons, it made sense that Lily was now a little older and could talk. Aubrey was so funny and confident that she quickly became a fan favorite. She played Lily for the rest of the show's 11-season run, and it's hard to imagine anyone else in the role. From one kid's show to another, our next recast is a real head-scratcher. A popular character was replaced for just 1 episode, with no explanation, before the original actress came right back. 10. Helen Dubois on Drake and Josh.
Everybody, calm down now. Quiet down. Come on now. Shush, shush. Listen up. Helen's got something to tell you.
Quiet!
On the Nickelodeon hit Drake and Josh, one of the most memorable and hilarious recurring characters was Helen. She was the manager of the movie theater where Josh worked. Helen was tough, sassy, and she had a huge crush on Drake. She was played with perfect comedic timing by actress Yvette Nicole Brown, who later went on to star in the show Community. Helen was a huge fan favorite, appearing in many episodes across the show's 4 seasons. But there is one strange exception. In a Season 2 episode called Little Sibling, the character of Helen shows up, but she is not played by Yvette Nicole Brown. For that one single episode, she was played by a different actress named Frances Callier. And the weirdest part is that the show never explains it. There's no reason given, no joke about it. It's just a different person playing the part for 1 week. Then, in her next appearance, Yvette Nicole Brown is back in the role as if nothing ever happened. To this day, there's no official reason for the 1-episode switch. It was likely due to a temporary scheduling conflict, but it remains a strange piece of trivia for fans of the show. A 1-episode switch is weird, but what about a show that cast a huge pop star in a role only to replace him when the character became a bigger part of the show? 11. Ryan Vogelson on Last Man Standing.
I told you to honk. Never mind. Let's go.
How about an introduction?
Oh, Mom, Terrence, Mom. Okay.
Hey, who's blocking the driveway?
Are you happy now?
The sitcom, Last Man Standing, stars Tim Allen as Mike Baxter, a dad who is surrounded by women at home with his wife and 3 daughters. A major storyline in the first season involves his oldest daughter, Kristen, who is a single mom. The father of her baby is a young man named Ryan Vogelson. He is not around much in the first season, as he is a bit of a deadbeat dad. In a special Christmas episode in Season 1, the character of Ryan makes his first and only appearance of the season, and he was played by a very famous face, the pop superstar Nick Jonas. It was a big deal to have such a huge star on the show, but when the show came back for its second season, the writers decided they wanted to make Ryan a regular character. They wanted him to be a bigger part of the story and to have a real relationship with Kristen and their son. The problem was, Nick Jonas was a little too busy being a world-famous musician to commit to a full-time TV role. So, the part was recast. A new actor, Jordan Masterson, took over the role of Ryan. He played the character for the rest of the show's long run, and he had a very different, more serious vibe than the version we saw with Nick Jonas. From a pop star to a cartoon star, our next recast involves one of the most famous animated families on television, and a voice you might not have realized was different in the beginning. 12. Meg Griffin on Family Guy.
Then I realized I had the wrong set of keys.
Did somebody take your keys?
Can I finish the story?
For over 20 years, Family Guy has been one of the most popular and controversial animated shows on TV. The show is about the dysfunctional Griffin family. One of the running gags of the show is how the family, especially her father Peter, treats the oldest daughter, Meg. She is the butt of almost every joke. The voice of Meg that we all know today, the one with the whiny and insecure tone, is provided by actress Mila Kunis. She has been the voice of Meg for almost the entire series. But she wasn't the first. When the show first started, the voice of Meg was provided by another actress, Lacey Chabert. You might know her from the movie Mean Girls or the show Party of Five. Lacey was the voice of Meg for the entire first season and a few episodes of Season 2. So why did she leave? It was a simple decision. At the time, she was still in school and was also busy working on Party of Five. Her contract was only for one season, and she decided not to renew it so she could focus on her other commitments. The role was then given to Mila Kunis, who has made the character her own ever since. A voice change is hard to spot, but a very obvious change happened on our next show, when a popular teenage actress was suddenly replaced on a show set in the 80s. 13. Jackie Geary on The Goldbergs.
We're ready to order.
Gotcha. I mean, I'm not your waiter, but I'll just take it.
Great. My husband here will have...
The Goldbergs is a sitcom based on the real life of its creator, Adam F. Goldberg. It's a nostalgic look at growing up in the 1980s. The show follows young Adam and his loud but loving family. A big part of any story about growing up is your first love. For Adam, that was a girl named Jackie Geary. Jackie was a fellow nerd who loved the same movies and sci-fi stories that Adam did. For 4 seasons, from Season 2 to Season 5, Jackie was played by actress Rowan Blanchard, who was a big star from the Disney Channel show Girl Meets World. She and Adam had a sweet on-again, off-again relationship that was a major part of the show. But when the show came back for its 6th season, Jackie was suddenly played by a different actress, Alexis G. Zoll. The show never mentioned the change, and the new actress played the character with a completely different style. The original Jackie was nerdy and sweet, while the new Jackie was a punk rocker. The change was very jarring for fans. There was no official reason given, but it was likely a creative decision by the producers who wanted to take the character in a new direction. Recasting a girlfriend is one thing, but our next show took it to a whole new level. It recast the main character's daughter not once, but twice. 14. Allison Stark on Till Death.
How all those clean clothes magically appear in your drawers? Well, this is a behind-the-scenes peek at that process.
The sitcom Till Death starred Brad Garrett and Jolie Fisher as Eddie and Joy Stark, a couple who had been married for a long time. The show's premise was about their lives compared to the lives of their newlywed neighbors. The Starks had an adult daughter named Allison, who was a recurring character. And this is where things get really confusing. When the show started, Allison was played by actress Kristen Ritter. She played the part for the first 2 seasons. Then, at the start of season 3, Allison was suddenly being played by a new actress named Laura Clary. The show made a couple of jokes about the change, with the dad, Eddie, saying she looked different. But it gets even weirder. When the show came back for its 4th season, Allison was recast again. This time she was played by actress Kate Micucci. At this point, the show just fully leaned into the joke. They would constantly make comments about Allison changing her appearance. It was a bizarre situation where a show recast a major character 3 times and just decided to make the recasting part of the show's humor. Recasting a character 3 times is wild. But what about a show that was canceled, then brought back years later, but had to recast one of the main family members because the original actress had moved on? 15. Mandy Baxter on Last Man Standing.
Table for one?
Yes, but I'm not alone. I'm recently married.
We already talked about the show Last Man Standing recasting one of the daughters, Kristen. But believe it or not, that wasn't the only Baxter sister who got a new face. The show was a big hit for 6 seasons on the network ABC. Then, in a surprise move, ABC canceled the show. Fans were outraged and campaigned to save it. A year later, another network, Fox, decided to pick up the show and bring it back. Almost the entire original cast agreed to return for the revival. But there was one holdout. Actress Molly Ephraim, who played the funny, fashion-obsessed middle daughter Mandy, was not able to come back. During the year the show was off the air, she had taken on other acting jobs and wasn't available to return, so the producers had to recast the role. A new actress, Molly McCook, took over as Mandy. This change was a lot more noticeable than the Kristen recast. The 2 actresses looked very different and had different comedic styles. The show even made a joke about it in the first episode back, with the dad, Mike, saying, "Mandy, you look different." It was a tough situation, but one that was necessary to bring the beloved show back to the fans. A recast due to a show's revival is unusual, but a much sadder reason for a recast is when an actress has to leave a show due to serious personal struggles. 16. Lori Foreman on That 70s Show.
No. In fact, I'm hot.
Oh, well, then why don't you go upstairs?
I am waiting for my jeans to come out of the dryer, and I want you to stay off my case. It'll only take me a minute.
I don't think Kelso's going to last that long.
Let's head back down to the basement in Point Place, Wisconsin for That 70s Show. The show was a hilarious look back at teenage life in the 1970s, centered around Eric Foreman and his group of friends. Eric also had an older sister named Lori, who was a constant pain in his neck. Lori loved to tease her little brother and was always getting into trouble. She was the perfect annoying older sister character, and she was played for the first 5 seasons by actress Lisa Robin Kelly. Lisa was fantastic in the role, making Lori a character that fans loved to hate. But behind the scenes, Lisa Robin Kelly was struggling with personal issues. She had problems with addiction that were making it difficult for her to continue working on the show. For her own health, she had to leave the series. Her character was written out, with the explanation that she had gone off to beauty school. For the show's 6th season, the writers wanted to bring the character of Lori back full-time. Since Lisa Robin Kelly was unable to return, they had to recast the role. They hired actress Christina Moore to take over. Christina was a talented actress, but it was a tough spot to be in. Fans were so used to Lisa's unique and quirky portrayal of Lori that it was hard for them to accept someone new. It's sad when real life affects a show. Our next story takes us back to the magical world of Bewitched, where another key character was replaced, this time because of drama on the set. 17. Louise Tate on Bewitched.
I'll take this with me and I'll check on dinner.
I'll carry it for you, sweetheart.
It isn't heavy.
We've already talked about the famous 2 Darrens situation on the classic sitcom Bewitched. But Darren wasn't the only character on that show who was played by 2 different actors. There was also a switch with the character of Louise Tate. Louise was the wife of Larry Tate, who was Darren's boss at the advertising agency. She and Samantha were good friends, and she was a frequent guest at the Stevens house, often getting caught up in the magical chaos without realizing it. For the first 2 seasons of the show, Louise was played by an actress named Irene Vernon. But after the 2nd season, she was gone, and a new actress, Casey Rogers, took over the role for the rest of the show's run. So what happened? According to reports from the time, the producer of the show, who was also the real-life husband of the star Elizabeth Montgomery, had a difficult relationship with Irene Vernon. There was a lot of tension on the set. On top of that, Irene's own husband became ill, and she decided it was the right time to leave the show. When Casey Rogers took over, she even dyed her natural red hair to a darker color to look more like the original actress and keep the continuity for the viewers at home. From one classic sitcom to another, our next recast happened because of a major contract dispute that changed a top-rated show forever. 18. Chrissy Snow on Three's Company.
You said you had a dream about me, Chrissy. Where do I come in? Oh, well, I was on my way home to see you.
Three's Company was one of the biggest and most popular sitcoms of the late 1970s. The show was about 2 single women, Janet and Chrissy, who needed a third roommate. They find Jack Tripper, who is a great cook, but the landlord won't allow single men to live with single women. So, they pretend Jack is gay. The show was full of silly misunderstandings and physical comedy. A huge part of its success was the character of Chrissy Snow, the stereotypical dumb blonde, played by Suzanne Summers. She was the show's breakout star. After 5 hugely successful seasons, Suzanne Summers and her husband, who was also her manager, decided she deserved a massive pay raise. They wanted her to be paid as much as the male star, John Ritter. The network refused. The contract dispute became very ugly and very public. As a result, Suzanne Summers' role on the show was greatly reduced. She would only appear for about a minute at the end of each episode, usually on the phone. Eventually, she left the show for good. To replace her, the show first brought in a new character named Cindy, played by Jenna Lee Harrison, who was Chrissy's clumsy cousin. Then they brought in another character, a smart nurse named Terry, played by Priscilla Barnes. The show was never quite as popular without the original trio. A contract dispute is a messy reason for a change. But what about a recast that happened on Friends that wasn't Carol? Yes, another character was quietly swapped out. 19. Mindy Hunter on Friends.
What would make you think that? Well, ever since we announced the engagement, he's been acting really weird. And then last night, he came home smelling like Chanel.
We started this journey talking about the recast of Carol on Friends, but she wasn't the only character on that show to be played by 2 different people. Do you remember Mindy? She was the maid of honor at Rachel's wedding to Barry, the wedding that Rachel ran away from in the very first episode. Mindy was also Rachel's best friend. And here's the twist. She was secretly having an affair with Rachel's fiancé, Barry. We first meet Mindy in a Season 2 episode where Rachel has to be the maid of honor at Mindy and Barry's wedding. In that episode, Mindy was played by a very famous actress, Jennifer Grey, who was the star of the movie Dirty Dancing. But that's the only time she played the part. A few seasons later, in Season 6, the character of Mindy returns for a brief appearance, but this time she is played by a different, lesser-known actress named Jana Marie Hupp. There's no big story behind this recast. Jennifer Grey was a big movie star who was likely just doing a one-off guest appearance. When they needed the character back years later, she was likely unavailable, or they simply hired someone else for the small part. It's a tiny detail that only the most hardcore Friends fans would ever notice.